Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. You're listening to the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. So we've seen a precious metals slam down in the past couple of days. It's coming back a little today on April 16th. But if you really want to find out what's going on with supply and what the prices of the physical metal are, you go to the mint. And in this case, that means Ross Hansen, who's founder and head of Northwest Territorial Mint. Ross, welcome back to the Financial Survival Network.
Kerry, it's always a pleasure coming back on your show.
And we appreciate your being here to share with us what exactly is the physical metal situation. We've heard that the junk, 90% silver, can't find it, and a lot of other things also.
Well, Terry, there's always a shortage of retail product whenever there's a price pop like this. And, of course, 90% junk coins are coins that were the dimes, quarters, and halves that were made in 1964 and before by the U.S. Mint. And, of course, there's a finite supply of those, and so there can be tight markets on that. And I tell people whenever there's a shortage of one product, there's always another good product to go into. So what I would recommend right now, and if somebody's out there looking for metal, is to shift over to 1 ounce rounds or 1 ounce bars or some other small fractional pieces, because there's still a plenty ample supply of that.
What's the supply on the Silver Eagles? Are they kind of hard to get your hands on now?
Well, you know, they're delayed right now, and that's not because there's a shortage of silver. You know, there's a number of promoters out there that whenever there's a shortage of eagles will tout that there's a shortage of silver. And, you know, that's just simply not true. And those people are fraudsters. What it is that the U.S. Mint orders their blanks from companies like ourselves. We used to supply blanks to the U.S. Mint, and there's a couple other companies out there. There's 3 companies right now that are currently supplying blanks to the U.S. Mint, and they place their orders, you know, months in advance. And if they have a sudden increase, they just don't have the blanks in the pipeline to supply the current needs. And unfortunately, it's a function of poor planning by the Mint. The Mint doesn't like to have any type of stockpile. They believe in just-in-time delivery, and they're not really motivated to keep an ample supply. I testified in front of Congress 2 years ago about this, and nothing's changed since.
What a shock. Congress didn't do anything. I don't know what to say.
Well, you know what? The reason for that is that the U.S. Mint was without a director for well over a year. And the people that they put into the directorship are usually just a polished bureaucrat with no manufacturing or experience, and they'll bounce from one high-profile job to another without any regards of demand for the public and taking the Mint and make it efficient.
Yeah, well, that is all too often the case in virtually every branch of government, whether it's an important branch, a vital branch, or unimportant. And as far as people selling back to you, because I assume you buy metal back from purchasers when they want to sell, have you seen a flood of metal coming back?
We've seen some metal coming back, but the purchasing is 3 or 4 to 1 over the selling back to us. But we make a two-way market in all of our products, and we're happy to do so. And we like buying back from our customers. If you can't sell it, there's really not a lot of reason to be buying it in the first place.
That's for sure. So, as far as where the markets stand right now and the prices and what's happened in the past couple of days, Ross, what's your take on it?
Well, a lot of the market, even being when it was on its rise, was a lot of institutional buying. There was a lot of major hedge funds. There's a lot of banks. There's just a lot of speculators that were in the market. And what happened is you continued to see the stock market do well, and a lot of these hedge funds are driven by people who just basically are looking at charts, and they're jumping from the investment du jour to the investment du jour every day. They're just it's a new investment. To them, they're not buying metal on any type of principle. They're looking at a chart. They're seeing momentum, and when they started to see metal slide, which they didn't think would happen, there was a bunch of panicked selling, and some of the very large positions. And the panic selling was instigated by slowing economies both here, Europe, and Asia, and the thought that the spark was that maybe some of the debtor nations in Europe, such as Cyprus and maybe Italy and Greece and Spain and Portugal, might have to sell some of their gold reserves to fund some of their debt, which has been in the past, up until just a few years ago, a very popular means for governments to raise off-balance sheet cash. And if that was to collectively start happening again, you could see some pretty large liquidations. After 2000, there was a number of countries that were liquidating their gold reserves, thought they were passé, thought that they didn't need them anymore. There was no reason to be backing the new euro, because we all knew that it had the full faith and credit of all the European nations.
Right. I believe that one.
Because we all know that paper money historically has always done well.
And tell me, you're going to tell me you're from the government and you're here to help me, right, Ross?
Well, of course, and let me give you this little piece of paper, that's going to steal your wages and inflate your real money. Mm-hmm. Right now people don't understand that the government is limping along, and it's limping along with over $90 billion worth of phony money being printed and injected into our economy every month. Yeah. This is money that's been monetized. It's money that's being created out of thin air. And if you study the history, and I'm sure that a lot of your listeners are, historians, love listening from history, because the old adage, if you don't understand history, you won't understand where we're going. And I really do believe that. Again, as history has proven time and time again, every time people make these new experiments with fiat currencies, the end is always the same. And Europe is just starting to realize that. You look at, I'm sorry I'm going off on a tangent.
Not at all.
But Cyprus is a country that's got a little bit more than 1 million people in it. And in our country, that would be a very small state. Mm-hmm. They have very few natural resources. They used to have copper mines there, but those have been played out, 20 centuries ago. And their economy is based on tourism and agriculture. And yet, under the new euro, they got in with the euro and they were able to write blank checks. So how do you take an agrarian society with very little natural resources and loan them tens of billions of dollars? How does that work?
It's like Iceland, same thing they did there.
Exactly. Let's have a little common sense. That seems to be lacking amongst all the countries. And we seem to forget the lessons of yesterday. Because you know why? We don't want to know the lessons of yesterday, because a fiat currency, inflated currency, helps the politicians get reelected. When they can go out and play Santa Claus and give money to their constituents to get themselves elected in power, they're only concerned about the current election. They're not worried about the fallout that's going to happen when the currencies blow up.
Yeah, it'll be somebody else's problem probably, and they keep kicking the can down the road, and that's that. So I guess, Ross, if I could summarize what you've said, is you're telling that if you own metal, nothing has changed other than a correction effectively brought on by the paper market. And that leads me to the question of, I read lots of stories about how if there's a redemption, Comex is going to fail, they don't have the metal, they won't be able to get it. Do you think that that's a possibility?
No, and I think that's overblown. But let me back up, and then if you'd like, I can talk directly about the Comex and their redemption issues.
Sure.
First of all, people ask themselves, and people are looking at it, and people get nervous when they see their investment starting to lose value. So you have to ask yourself, if you think that our global economy, and specifically the United States economy, is back on the mend, that this Congress and Barack Obama have the answers and they're working towards a structured monetary solution, then yes, go sell your precious metals.
Yeah.
But if you think that this is a house of cards, as I do, if you think that the Congress is just continuing to make things worse, if you think that inevitably the can that they're kicking down the road is going to fall off the cliff and our economy is going to go off the cliff like Thelma and Louise, then you better hang on to your metal. I've seen a lot of currencies in the world come and go, but I've never seen gold go down to zero.
Yeah, and Thelma and Louise might wind up have suffered a better fate than the U.S. economy is going to suffer once it goes off that cliff, once the dollar collapses, and the world. I mean, it's going to be turmoil no matter what China and the others try to do now. You just can't chop off 50% of the world's reserves, 60% one day, and expect to have a pleasant outcome.
And talking about, I want to dispel a myth, and I'm going to catch a lot of hell doing this.
Good. We like to kill myths. We're mythbusters here, Ross, so go ahead.
A lot of the people will point and say, well, there's some grand conspiracy on the Comex and exchange, and that, if all the redemptions happened today, they couldn't redeem them all. Well, they're not supposed to be able to redeem them all. The Comex exchange is there for the futures market. And let me explain how it works. Let's say that you and I go out and we discover a pile of silver ore out in the desert, and we can, and it proves itself up, and we want to go build a big mine because we got a great big body of ore, and it's got 1 billion ounces of gold in it, silver in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens is you and I need to go borrow money to develop that mine. And there's going to be two factors. You're going to have your initial investment of building the mine and all the permitting that may or may not happen because the government sure isn't making it easy to mine.
Right.
And then you have the factor that once you get the mine in operation, you don't get the metal for free. There's a cost to it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you and I had this imaginary silver mine, which I actually own 11 silver mines, but to develop a world-class silver mine, we might have to spend $500 million just to do the initial, groundwork, the permitting, buy the equipment, put the crusher plant in, the refinery in, before we turn out 1 ounce of silver. And I don't know about you, but I don't have an extra $500 million laying around.
Well, it would take me a week to put it together, but I guess I could do it.
So we can do it one of two. We can raise that initial $500 million one of two ways. We can go to the bank. If we have a real good project, we can go to the bank. Banks will loan you money just like they will any other business, and that's cheap money. If you borrow money from the bank, you get it cheap. And if you can't do that, then you go do a stock issuing. You do a stock release, and that's expensive money. Mm-hmm. But let's say that our mine is so good that we can borrow money at the bank. the bank is going to look at the initial investment, and then they're going to look at the cost to produce an ounce of silver. And we say, okay, well, we'll be in operation in 5 years, and our cost to produce that ounce of silver is, let's say, just $10. Well, we all know that in the last few years, silver has been low as $3.50 an ounce. And the bank knows that too. So the bank will insist before they loan us money that we hedge our silver. And we'll say, well, we're not even going to turn out an ounce of silver for 5 years. And they'll say, good. Starting in 5 years for the next 5 years, for 10 years out, you're going to hedge the silver production in your mine because we would like to be paid back. In case the price of silver falls below $10, we don't want you going backwards and going bankrupt. So right now, if silver's at $23, you go hedge silver at $23. And they will force their creditors to go hedge their silver production. So they'll go out and hedge, from 5 years to 10 years out their production. That's not silver that they have in their hands. It's silver that they have in the ground. Mm-hmm. And the hucksters out there will point at that and say, oh, my God, look, they don't have the money, or they don't have the silver in the exchange for the redemptions. Well, you're right, they don't. And they're not supposed to. It's supposed to be based on future production. Exchanges were set up to meet the future demand needs with the future production needs, not for some big warehouse where it's all stashed and we're all holding warehouse receipts. So when somebody points at there and says, oh, there's this is a fraud, no, it's not. Now, is there fraud that happens? Is there manipulation that happens? Of course, in any stock market, in any commodities market, that does happen. But as a general rule, it operates pretty damn efficient. And these same people who are libertarians who say, the government hands off my silver, want the government go in there and regulate even tougher the commodities exchange. And my attitude is stay the hell out of it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. I think, there's definitely people that play the manipulation game, and there's definitely, governments at work that I think you'll agree don't want to see the price of gold go over $2,000 an ounce because it undermines the faith in the currency, right?
Well, you know what? I really, in the politicians I talk to, they couldn't care less. Whether silver or gold goes, sky high, I don't think that's even a factor in their thinking anymore. I think all they know is that they have the Federal Reserve to write checks on an empty account, and as long as that happens, they're good to go.
That's it. And what about the chairman of the Federal Reserve? He must care about the price of gold and silver.
You know what? In my dealings with the different government agencies and I'm a member of the Mint Masters because we're a large mint and we make coins and currencies for different countries around the world. Every 2 years, the Mint Directors Conference, I get to meet a lot of the top bankers and people, and these people are good people. And they're not evil, sinister people living in a hollowed-out volcano.
Yeah.
But what they are is they're people that have the modern view of how the economy works. And they all want to do new math.
Yeah.
And we've seen new math is bad math.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's laws of physics, there's laws of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much I try to, tell people that 2 + 2 can be 6, mm-hmm. It's still 4.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And a lot of these people have pretty, let's just say, creative ways of how global economies work. These people don't aspire to these lofty positions by telling politicians no, and politicians don't get into their position by telling constituents who have their hands out no. Mm-hmm. So, there's an old adage that says when robbing Peter to pay Paul, you'll always get the support of Paul.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I can see that would definitely be the case throughout history.
And as we know in this country, we've got more and more Pauls all the time and a lot less Peters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. I think you've summed it up nicely. But isn't there somebody somewhere in the world, in the so-called free world, that understands the relationship of precious metals, that gold is money? Or is everybody oblivious to this? I just find it hard to believe. Are they willfully stupid, or what is it? I don't understand.
It's not that they're willfully stupid. A lot of these people understand, but you have to understand that the central bankers have masters, and they're not going to be in their position if their local politician, if they're head of their country, isn't being taken care of, and vice versa. It's a symbiotic relationship between a banker and a politician. It's good for both of them. And for a while, it's good for the economy and it's good for the people who are receiving it. It's not good for the producers of that country. And eventually, you'll suck them dry and it'll collapse. It happens time and time again. But when you put up a symbiotic relationship between a banker and a politician, that's pretty tough to fight.
Yeah, I imagine so. And then we get back to what's the solution. At this point in life, how could we ever go back to a metallic standard? And yet, when all of this collapses, we will, won't we?
Well, what I know is this. Gold and silver have been good since the beginning of time. I've often told this story as a young pilot. In fact, they discontinued this about the time I became a pilot. But prior to me being a pilot, they used to give pilots that were flying combat missions gold coins in their survival kit, and it didn't matter where you were at. You could bail out over the most primitive society or the most sophisticated society. And guess what? Your gold coins would serve money in every country in the world. People have talked about losing faith in the U.S. dollar and that we need a reserve currency. Well, you know what? The U.S. dollar is the reserve currency.
Yeah.
Gold and silver are good in every country in the world. There's places throughout the world that won't take paper money, but they'll always take gold. They'll always take silver. And you know what? It used to be on our bailout packs. I tell people, put a little in your bailout pack. Because I got to tell you something. Silver and gold goes up and down, but it's never become worthless. And we've all heard the millions of stories of people who had gold and silver, how it, saved their life. It let them get out of a country. It bought their way to freedom. That, with that, they were able to be smuggled on a boat or an airplane or bribe the border guard.
Right.
And, I'm a true believer in gold and silver. Do I say sell the house and hawk the kids to buy gold and silver? No. But any well-balanced and well-managed portfolio has a percentage of its wealth in precious metals.
Well, that does make a lot of sense. And you need to have your bailout or your bug-out pack ready, because as much as they'd like to project the appearance of stability in the system, it's really teetering at this point, isn't it?
Teetering? No. It's fundamentally flawed.
And it's vulnerable, put it that way.
And it's fundamentally flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only one way it's going to end. It's no different than, we've all had friends that have had substance abuse. And every friend says, oh, no, I'm different. I can handle cocaine.
Yeah, right. I'll never get addicted.
I'll never get addicted. I'm stronger than that. And inevitably, they always end up with their nose in the gutter or plastered on the side of the road, and it always ends up bad. Well, our country is addicted to the cocaine of cheap money that they can print. And you know what? It's to nobody's advantage to stop the printing presses until it all collapses. A few years ago, we've seen bubbles happen in the past, and right now we've got a credit bubble going on. But just a few years before that, we had the bubble in real estate that was brought on by easy credit. And before that, we had, the panic over Y2K, and we had the big bubble that was the internet bubble. Do you remember the internet and
sure.
all the dot-com companies, and you couldn't lose by investing in them?
Uh-huh.
And, get smart, get invested in precious metals, no matter if it goes up or down, all around. It's there, and it's the bedrock, it's the foundation of, a sensible investment.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and I've put my money where my mouth is, or at least some of my money. And if you're thinking about and you're worried and concerned about what's happening here, probably not a bad idea for you to do it too. And now I think you got the inside scoop, what's going on directly from the mint, one of the largest mints, the largest mint in North America, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And we appreciate you coming on, Ross, and filling us in. And we'll talk with you again soon. Probably after this dislocation is over, we'll see metals prices start to go up again, I'd imagine.
Very good.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. When it comes to buying physical gold and silver, Regal Assets is the place to go. Did you know that you can use your existing retirement plan to invest in precious metals, and it's 100% tax-free with Regal Assets? I hope you're seriously thinking about using precious metals in your retirement plan to help you beat inflation. It's so simple to use your existing IRA or old 401k to set up your precious metals retirement plan. Request your free investment kit today. It's so helpful and informative that it was recently featured in Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Get the latest info by calling toll-free 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620. Or visit regalassets.com and use the code Lutz. You'll save the setup fees and a whole lot more at regalassets.com.